And here at the top left-hand corner of Ohana, we have our Red Zerg player from Team SEV Life, our 8-time Fight Club champion. It is none other than HyuN. And his opponent here in the lower right-hand corner, our Blue Terran player from Prime. He took the first game, but he's lost the last two in a row. Trying to tie things up, it is Byun.
Okay, so we did mention that Prime did get all killed just last week. Who got that? Parting. And didn't Prime also get all killed by Yanghua the first week by LGIM? Or so that's a couple of all kills against their team now.
Yeah.
So I mean that's obviously not going to help Prime out in our IPTL. I've heard they've also had some troubles in GSTL, but I haven't actually been able to watch as much just because of the late time and all that. But
they've got such a good team,
yeah,
too.
it really just doesn't make sense.
Now, Byun is planning on doing an 11, at least one 11 racks. I'm not sure where it's going to pop out.
Right there.
Okay, on the Cell Tower. Interesting. Because as we see, HyuN knows the possibility of 11 racks. It happens all the time in ZVT here. And so he's running around the side and trying to check for this. And I think he's going to come back to the Cell Tower and grab this. No!
Oh, my goodness.
Byun putting this in. No! Okay, HyuN is going to come back. He heard us. And he knows that there's a barracks in the middle of the map.
All right, he's going to stumble upon this. He's got the, actually, does he have another barrack? What is that? It must be a depot at the top of his ramp, right? Okay, yeah. So no other barracks yet. So just the one, and it's kind of interesting. It does, give him a little bit more of a forward advantage to try and start harassing the natural. But obviously, with HyuN discovering that, it could still be a little bit difficult to get any value out of it.
Okay, well, Byun now, he does have barracks number 1 finished, and he got a second SCV there, and I don't know if it was just to defend the first SCV that was out, but with the barracks coming down on 11, I think he wanted to build a second barracks. Unfortunately, it's just not going to be the case, though. HyuN did shut that down. HyuN going into a pool afterwards, and his gas on pretty predictable times.
All right, with everything looking as normal, Byun will have to try and respond to what he's seen in the past. Perhaps Marine Tank again will be the order of the day for him because, the Banshee play didn't quite work out. Obviously, it was a bit of a build order loss as, getting Banshees out when you're being overrun by roaches is not super duper helpful, but if he does actually see the same build out of HyuN, Banshees could be valuable again. Obviously, Hellions have been successful in the past as well for Gumiho, so that's another option, but these drones are actually getting this Marine kill, whether they die doing it or not. They really, really don't want these Marines showing up, so 2 Marines have been taken out for the price of, I think, 3 drones, maybe even 4 there.
Forced to cancel there, and
just 2, okay.
Let's see here. Yeah, just 2 drones have gone down to 2 Marines, 17 workers to 15 at the moment. Of course, Byun just has to make like 3 or 4 Marines, and he can start to float this back, and indeed he is. Well, it would have been 3 or 4 Marines, but 2 of them died, I guess. So he's floating them back at the moment. And we'll see if Byun decides to go for that strategy. A lot of Terran players will on this map. Just take 3 barracks, build them here, make sure you're not going to die to a quick rush, and then move into something like mech afterwards, or just very strong biomech.
Well, he's got another command center, yeah. So actually 2 building at once right now. He's looking to take a very quick third again. If HyuN does stick to his 6-minute third base, Byun will be able to catch up with that 3rd command center, and yeah, he is actually just going to wall the front. Yep. With these 2 more barracks.
No real surprise there. This Overlord's going to get a great look, though, as the Marines are obviously way out of position. And we'll see that 3rd command center on the way. Now, as we know, it's another Roach Horn coming up at the front for HyuN. He's not aware of the big wall that's up at the front. He has the potential to go through the destructible rocks on the side, but that will delay for a bit and allow Byun to start producing quite a few Marines off of these 3 barracks.
Yeah, this could be pretty interesting. Obviously, Byun will be able to make 2 more SCVs at a time with these other command centers, and also be able to drop mules all over the place. So with sort of like 2.5 bases, I guess I'll call it, because those mules are still so valuable. He could actually get enough units out before HyuN is able to just flatten him with roaches. I'm actually really surprised that HyuN is not going for that 3rd base build on this map when he hasn't really seen any reason not to.
No, but we'll see what kind of roach pressure this is going to be as well. Not really any indication. This is exactly the same number of drones that he was on the last time he tried this, when he decided to go and drone up afterwards. 10 roaches are popping out all at the same time. And we'll see what he produces afterwards. Okay, back into drones, but just 10 roaches opposed to the 13 he made last game.
Yeah, no Baneling follow-up either this time, so even, again, slightly different. He is actually sending a drone over to that 3rd base location, ready to go to drop a hatch. just squirming around. There he does drop that base, so around 7 minutes after the 10 roaches have started to work their way across. I'm not sure what triggered that change in build order for him, but either way.
Oh, perfect scout.
Yeah, great scout there from Byun. So either way, these roaches are going to be known. They're going to still probably try and tease the front here, but with all these Marines, I believe, he does not have stam, okay, and no combat shields either. So HyuN could actually still be able to power down one of these barracks. If he moves around to the side, he could even actually start to work on those rocks as well, but I don't really see much damage getting done here. There's one SCV killed at least.
He's killed one SCV, but he hasn't gotten too much done and hasn't really been able to do much in the way of hurting economy, and all the Marines have actually been left alive, and the roaches are starting to get whittled down. And even if a couple of Marines go down here, there's plenty enough to be able to hold this back. Byun actually standing and fighting a little bit long there as he loses some of his Marines. Surprised he didn't cycle any of the hurt Marines to the back, but the roaches are eventually going to be whittled away without too many worker losses being taken.
Actually, I mean, he did. It looked for a second there that HyuN was just going to say, screw it, I'm going to let you have all my roaches. I'm just going to try and trade a little bit, because if it buys him time, then once that third hatchery is up, he would be able to outproduce him. But then he did actually back off with still some roaches intact. He killed some SCVs, killed a lot of Marines, more Marines than I thought he would. And I think if resources lost, yeah, they actually just pretty much traded there. 14 workers lost, though, for Byun is going to hurt more than the 8.
Oh, just 14
units. Okay, yeah, that's right. So not that big of a deal. Yeah, 5 workers killed total, 6. Some other SCVs just got taken out as well. But HyuN does have his third base up, and Byun is pretty much confined into his 2 still.
So HyuN now with layer tech on the way with that Roach Horn looks to be hitting what he normally likes to do, which is a bit delayed. It's delayed by about a minute, give or take. I guess more like 40 seconds, give or take. We may, if he decides to keep going with the same strategy, we'll see a Baneling Nest here in a bit. Then the question will be whether he wants to try and get through with a bunch of mutas or just stick to Infestor tech, which we saw in game number 1. Of course, that didn't work out too well for him. Byun actually pushing ahead, though, and killing a lot of roaches in the middle, and that's worked out pretty well for him as he does stretch the lead in resources lost altogether.
All right, yeah, and with Byun still unable to take that third, he is actually going to switch a little bit, or at least set up a little bit for the mid-game with that armory on the way. 17 Marines on the field total, just that one Marauder that we see there. But HyuN is actually starting to make some more fighting units. He's got a Baneling Nest coming up as well, and his lair will be done soon, so mutiling Baneling is going to be a big possibility once more on Ohana.
And calling down all these mules, Byun's economy is looking pretty good. And honestly, because of the amount of stuff he's forced out of his opponent, I mean, his opponent decided he wanted to go up to a ton of gas and Baneling Nest at that point, but he had to make a lot of attack units just because Byun had threatened up in the front, and now he can't get anything done with them. So Byun is trading pretty favorably here, forcing his opponent to stop producing workers, and then on top of that, when he tries to get something done with them, just kind of killing them cost effectively. So even though he's not directly killing workers, Byun Prime is still doing economic damage.
Yeah, he's forcing other units to be built besides workers, so that is at least stunting the growth. We have 6 Banelings coming up now for HyuN, so he has started production on the splash damage units, and with the infestation pit coming along as well, it looks like perhaps instead of mutiling Bling, he's actually going to work on that Ultra build once more. As Fungals get done, he can try to do a bunch of damage with Fungal, Ling, and Baneling, but if it gets a little bit longer into the game, then Ultras would be a nice follow-up for that. So even though the build didn't really work out in the first game, HyuN could give it another look in Game 4 here.
Yeah, but now he's kind of playing from a bit of a disadvantage compared to where he was then, and even then Byun Prime was able to kind of hold back the waves of aggression and end up winning the game. So, you know, Byun's position I like at the moment. I think he's quite a bit ahead at the you know, for now, but HyuN always has that possibility because this map is a lot different than Antigua Shipyard, and this base is a lot less exposed to be able to sit back, win one big engagement, and just kind of take the map from there.
Yeah, if either side wins one big engagement, they'll be in good shape because, you know, obviously we've seen the previous games, once that advantage starts, these players are very good at snowballing it and just getting farther and farther ahead. Spire is coming up now for HyuN, not that, oh, actually he is getting Hive Tech as well, so we could see the Broodlords like we saw last week, we still have not seen yet against Byun.
Now, Byun does not have any tanks on the field, nor does he have a Tech Lab factory. So, with Infestors, with Banelings, there's a good potential for HyuN to take a big engagement here and really make that Tier 3 tech work, because that's what he's powering ahead to at the moment. If he can pull it off, then he's going to be in great shape. But if Byun does any sort of economic damage here, it's just going to set all that back so far.
Yep, HyuN just wants this to continue without any fights as long as he can, so that he can just stall, get that tech in place. Byun on the other side, just adding on a ton of production facilities at this point. Lots of barracks for the time being. Also getting vehicle weapon upgrades with all these Marines and Marauders. If the switch does happen soon, he could actually be a little bit behind without a large number of tanks. I'm surprised we don't see actually any tanks moving around.
No, he just built that tech lab.
Yeah, so he is getting vehicle weapons before actually having any tanks on the field. With the Jaws Infestors. Yep.
Yes, Infestors coming through the left-hand side. Banelings, a couple of Banelings are, I think one of them was actually used on those Marines there, so a little bit careless, but oh, Byun, oh no, he gets everything fungled. That was such a good bait from HyuN. That worked out so well for him. That's exactly what he needed there, and Byun loses a ton of units, and he's got to scramble.
Yep, wonderful, nice tactic there from HyuN to kill off all those Marines. Obviously, Byun can replace them fairly quickly, but HyuN moving closer to max. He actually needs just a couple more Overlords to get him there, but 9 Corruptors in production with that Greater Spire on the way. It's going to be really tough for Byun to be able to fight that back. He doesn't have any Vikings in the air, as far as I'm aware. Just lots of Medivacs and Bio on the ground. Yeah, no Vikings at all, and only the 1 tank. So I think HyuN should be able to survive long enough for this Greater Spire to finish if he just hangs on to the stuff he's got here, perhaps makes a few more Banelings in the time being.
Okay, well, still not too many more workers have been killed this entire game. Oh, these Infestors are just going right on through as well. It looks like they don't see the little pathing there on the bottom, and HyuN is setting up for another big flank. He's going to draw fire and then jump up and throw off some fungal growths. Of course, if he can get that done, or draw some of the fire with infested Terrans away from the siege tanks.
We'll find out in just a moment what course of events we see. HyuN is actually probably just going to send in the Lings first. He may actually build more Banelings depending on how many units he sees, and really wants to try to commit to killing. Another Spire actually in production now for HyuN for upgrade purposes, or perhaps just to protect in case of a drop or something like that. 6 Broodlords in production right now.
Okay, well, we'll see if HyuN decides to move out with those once they are finally finished up. The Queen burrowing actually away, and the units in the middle of the map are going to get destroyed. And oh, look at these Infestors just tagging along behind all of the siege tanks there. That's, oh, this is so dirty. I'm waiting for this to get pulled off here. 3 more Broodlords coming up. It's going to be a total of 9. The army is going to be maxed for HyuN, and he'll start banking a lot of resources and moving forward afterwards. Yeah,
HyuN actually split up those 2 Infestors, so he had one tailing that tank and another tailing the other tank. So if he pops them out and drops fungals, the tanks will just fire upon each other as well, so it's just extra damage. I remember that actually, I think, was one of the challenges.
Put infested Terrans.
But the scan actually takes out both of them before they're able to do their sabotage. Interesting.
That's right. So that actually becomes a little bit worse position for HyuN now, because he doesn't have the ability. Oh, nice, killing the creep tumor just before all the units die there. Because now Byun can pretty much set up on whatever he wants. He's got defensive planetary fortresses that could get established. He's got a lot of command centers on the way just in general. And he can fall back to a very strong position. Even though he's not got a lot of anti-air, he'll be able to replenish that pretty quickly with 4 starports coming up at the same time.
Yep, this is interesting. Obviously, it depends where these Broodlords are actually positioned as the Marines come in. The tanks will be leapfrogging forward, but here are 9 Broodlords already dropping tons of Broodlings onto the ground, chasing these Marines with the Lings and Banelings coming in as well. He'll be able to assault this pretty easily. You can see the Infestors dropping fungal all across the Marines on the bottom side. 1 more fungal across the top would actually clear them out as well, and all the Lings are actually separated from the Broodlords and Infestors, so they are going to go down, but there's still a huge contingent up here. Big Baneling blast, and HyuN with a 40-ish supply lead after that encounter.
Yeah, it was about 60, actually.
Yeah, he just boosted another 92 Lings in production.
92 Lings at the same time, along with all the relevant upgrades on the way, like the air upgrades that are being prioritized as well. It tells me, though, that he's not going to switch into Ultralist anytime soon. So with 6 Vikings at a time being produced, and that's off of 4 unupgraded starports. He may be able to stabilize for a second, but HyuN is really putting on the pressure right now. Going to take out this command center as well. Will he be able to pop through the defensive? No, there's no defensive planetaries. He turned them all into orbital commands. So
he doesn't even want to go over there. He's coming to the natural to try and just break through this front, perhaps try and get all these tanks down first. Then the Broodlords can just sweep in. As the Vikings are starting to come out, though, he's going to need to reinforce with a few more Corruptors. But right now, lots of SCVs going down, lots of Marines going down, and the Broodlords are still standing.
It may be, but that was a really bad engagement for HyuN right there. He ran all, look at the Zergling button on the ground. He just ran him into a choke point, and the tanks, the Marines, were able to sit back. Look at those Marines have 11 kills, 12 kills, 13 kills apiece. They chewed through the Zerglings, and even though he's losing a couple of barracks up at the front, look at the infrastructure that he still has to fall back on. How many starports he's got sitting around, how much he's even still got off to the left-hand side. So I think that even though HyuN did do a little bit of damage, yes, and he still is in a decent position here. He's going to lose all of his Broodlords. He killed 27 workers, but his opponent's still on 56 with a billion orbital commands. That did not end up as badly as it could have for Byun.
That's true. As you pointed out, all those Marines had a ton of kills. A lot of them were Broodlings, but the Lings were basically just shoved into a tight space there. The Infestors did not really have enough energy to finish up, and HyuN actually on the back foot now. He did just have a 60 supply lead. We did say that, right?
Yes, he did.
And then basically blew it, just attacking into that basically heavily fortified position rather than splitting forces potentially, trying to get Byun to respond to multiple places, or maybe even just attacking those orbitals on the left side near the third.
All right, well, Byun will finally be able to put down this planetary fortress, or what I assume will become a planetary fortress. There we go. He's got a lot of gas built up at the moment, but that's what he needed. Here come the mules, and 8 mules at the same time. You'll see what this will do to the economy here, and with all the SCVs coming back. Yeah, I mean, he lost 27 workers in this game so far, but he's retained plenty enough to rebuild his economy exactly the way that he wants to, and now is set up on a defensive position. And with those air upgrades that I was talking about before, we clearly see that HyuN is committing to Broodlords. He's committing to things through the air. He's got 3 Broodlords, 13 Corruptors, but Byun is going to have no problem matching that.
All right, and with HyuN actually trying to establish this 5th base, no drones there yet, so he is actually at a possibility of losing it to just these Marines. He is going to slowly respond with that Air Force, and that is actually the big difference between the Zerg Air Force and the Terran Air Force. Corruptors are speedy enough, but the Broodlords themselves are pretty slow. Infestors are much faster on creep and can respond pretty quickly, but these Broodlords are just so slow that you basically need them to be near the front at all times. And look at this, Byun actually splitting the forces, attacking the right side now as well with these super mobile high DPS Marines.
He pulled so much out of position there. I mean, HyuN basically brought all of his forces to deal with a few Marines and wasted multiple fungal growths, so this is not where he wants to be at the moment, and he is going to lose a hatchery on top of that, so even though he'll lose a few Marines here, well worth it, and cuts out all of the mining there.
That's right. Byun is establishing his own, and he's returned now with this super low health hatchery. That's going to be taken out as well. So HyuN down to only 3 mining bases, actually probably only 1.5, I would say. Yeah, actually not even that. One big mining base, the others nearly depleted.
And, well, yeah, I mean, in that big mining base you were talking about is almost depleted itself. 225 minerals on that. He's really got to recover in a hurry now because Byun is sitting so well. He's got, let's see here, 5 orbital commands on the field in addition to the planetary fortress, so he can replenish his pure worker count so easily. He can drop down 5 mules at a time, so it keeps his mineral count so high. Even though he doesn't have a ton of control of the map in terms of just look at all the burrowed Zerglings and such. I mean, HyuN has really nice vision of all the running paths. He just really doesn't have the force to back it up. And yes, Corvid Reactor Seeker Missile being produced for an eventual Raven transition.
All right, he is actually just going to go ahead and transition right now. It looks like with 2 Ravens in production and the Seeker Missile and the energy upgrade. We have another armory up. I do believe he had been researching vehicle upgrades already.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so he's just making another one to try and get multiple upgrades going at once. Obviously, air upgrades can start to be worked on at the same time as vehicle upgrades. 6 Vikings coming out at one time now. And HyuN is unable to match that production. His income is just so low after losing that 4th base and 5th base. Having to reestablish that is going to put him way behind. And Byun actually has an opportunity to perhaps take a second game. Obviously, it is going to come down to these engagements. HyuN made a sort of ill-advised one earlier, but this is enough Vikings to easily plow through the remaining Corruptors and Broodlords.
That's right. With the Banelings, that's kind of a wild card for HyuN down at the bottom, though. With Banelings coming up, if he can get in there and get a decent engagement, like catch all these unsieged and blow slope all the Marines, he may have an opportunity to move forward with the Infestors. He's going to try right now, though, and I'm not sure about that decision. Look at the amount of Vikings that are sitting around. Even if they don't have all the upgrades in the world, it doesn't matter. The Ravens, I think one of the Ravens was actually picked off, but no matter. It's accumulating a bunch of energy, and it's going to have Secret Missile here in just a second. Even durable materials being researched.
All right, HyuN actually sent those Corruptors and Broodlords in and did not send in the Infestors, Lings, and Banelings on the ground, so did not actually do that concerted effort that he needed. Actually ended up paying for it with those Broodlords, and now actually going to lose a Spinecrawler as well, actually some Banelings as well. So HyuN, his forces are a little bit lighter than he would like. Byun with a ton of Vikings that once they clear out the Corruptors and the Broodlords, they can just land, and they're effectively just, you know, light armor Marines at that point. So he's got some good options. He's adding on another tech lab here, and what are these other add-ons? Another reactor as well.
Yeah.
Just to start churning out more Vikings and more Ravens from the tech lab one.
We may even see a fusion core here in a bit. I'm just trying to think of the last game that I've actually seen durable materials researched, though. It's been a really long time, but I'm a fan of it. So let's see here. Finally, HyuN does have his 2 more bases that are established. They're up and going. The Spore Crawlers have all taken a beating, but it looks like they've done their job. And it's currently 63 workers to 55 with no mules on the field. You can see that the economy will start to favor HyuN just a bit. But Byun can take the space off to the right-hand side here in a hurry, and it looks like he is starting to float over a command center there. So
HyuN actually responding to these Marines once more, but it looks like Byun is finally making his huge push with all these Vikings. The Broodlords try to scatter. There's no splash or anything like that. These Vikings obviously have superior range. Point defense drones zapping everything. Huge fungals. Banelings get passed into the tank line, though.
He used a Secret Missile on the Banelings down at the bottom, and it actually killed about 15 of them or 20 of them before they were able to make their way up to the siege tanks. That was so cool.
It looks like HyuN actually needs Scourge now, though.
Yes.
And does not have access to that unless he goes back in time and plays a different game.
Oh, wow. Okay, so HyuN now loses the vast majority of his army up the front. He's trying to produce nothing but Vikings, and nothing but Speedlings. The Speedlings are very good against landed Vikings, but there's still just so many of them. There is a couple of SCVs in there. I was wondering what that blue spot was. Byun is in a really great position, though. I mean, he's quick to being able to, he should be able to take that position pretty quickly. He can float an orbital command over there as long as he drops down a scan. And he continues reinforcing with a lot of forces, going back almost over to pure Marine tank medevac and churning out a lot of units on the ground.
Looks like HyuN is actually switching to Ultralisks now, as he does have that Cavern in production. Also with the 17 Banelings in production and 28 more Lings, looks like he is just switching away completely from those Corruptors and Broodlords. So now Byun obviously can respond to that as well. He's adding on more tanks and probably should tack on a few more Marauders, but the Ravens were actually superstars in that last battle with the Secret Missile on the Banelings, like you said, and the point defense drones nuking tons of those Broodlings. He was able to just plow through that Air Force.
That point defense drone was, the point defense drones were, well, on point. They worked really, really well. They did everything that that Byun could have hoped for and more, as it allowed the Vikings to get such a good engagement against the rest of the forces on the ground. Here comes HyuN. He's going to move out right now. Secret Missile being dropped on the ground, and it does take out quite a few Banelings. The other Raven does get picked off pretty easily, but HyuN's forces are just running into a brick wall, and Byun is now up considerably in this game.
Yep, Byun is showing off the power of not clumped Terran forces. Obviously, with staggered forces like that, you eliminate Fungal a little bit, you eliminate Baneling Splash a little bit, and you know, HyuN, he shredded through the front part of those forces, but there were still so many Vikings, Marines, and tanks standing, you know, going all the way back toward the middle of the map, toward the Zelnaga Tower, that he just basically formed up everything now and can continue moving through here after HyuN basically spent all of his Banelings and energy.
And a few Zerglings are running by here. That doesn't matter. HyuN is actually out of the game, and things are all tied up. HyuN taking game